Hi, it's Wednesday, it's raining, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Celerity's LinkedIn Live series on Bouncing Forward. We're looking at how we attend to customers, clients, and business during times of uncertainty, and I've got Sjaloom Verhagen with me. You've invested decades with Marriott, and you're with RadNet now.
Yes.
Would you mind giving me a quick introduction to who you are and a little bit of your background?
Yes, I'll be happy to do that. I have been with Marriott most of my career, most of my life, and a large portion of my time with Marriott, I was involved in running their call centers. I've done that in London, in California, and I oversaw their 5 call centers in North America. And then in my last role at Marriott, I was I was leading the change management and strategic communications organization for Marriott's consumer services organization. And that included the call centers, again, a great passion of mine, but also sales, marketing, brands, revenue management. And then I transitioned industries. So I moved from hospitality to healthcare, and now work for a leading radiology company, RadNet, and I run their call center operations for the East Coast. So that's kind of high level.
We'll definitely dive into a lot of those aspects. I'm just struck and curious about the similarities between hospitality and healthcare. I mean, in both you have a customer at the center and this dedicated care of that customer. What, from your point of view, between Marriott and RadNet, and this isn't even on our question list, but what are those similarities between hospitality and healthcare from your perspective?
And do you know, this transition has been so interesting. And I think the similarities is you have to take care of your customers, and you have to create experiences, and you have to make sure that the experience is frictionless and seamless. So that's where the similarities are. What I've noticed in how you define care and how you define the experiences, that's where there was a bit of a difference. Because at Marriott we had business travelers, leisure travelers, they would call us, and how they were, and I'm just looking at it from a call center perspective, but how we handled the calls and how we created experiences is very different when you're in healthcare, when someone has to go for a procedure and they may be a little bit concerned about their health when they go into the procedure. So how you define care and bring empathy into it is very, very different. But the core of it is very similar.
Are there lessons for healthcare from hospitality that you would want?
Yes. I think one of the things that I've learned from hospitality is that the customer is at the center of everything, and everything that you do is part of that. What I loved about Marriott's culture is you take care of your associates and they take care of the customers. And I think that is something that, and I think RadNet is already doing a fabulous job with that, but we want to continue to pull that through. If you take care of your people, you take care of your customers, and creating the right experience at the right time is something that I've learned, and we will definitely continue that on the journey with RadNet.
Yep, that makes sense. I have the privilege of working with Celerity, and some of our customer centricity folks I'm sure that they are listening and are Sjaloom, of course, yes. So Sjaloom consistently explores new ideas and connects creative communications and designs, overseeing large projects. While we're kind of ramping up, before we dive into some of the deeper questions, what do you do for fun during the pandemic?
Do you know, it's the definition of fun has kind of changed a little bit, right? During the pandemic, I mean, going to the supermarket now is fun because you're getting outside of your house. But I've always like to do a variety of things. I love spending time with my kids and the ones I love. And we are actually, we've been ordering these crime folders on Amazon, and we're solving crimes at home together as a family. And it's a very different and social way of interacting with them. I do happy hours with my family in Holland. And I also like to do things in the house. I might crochet. I can't crochet. I probably only know one stitch, but they're all different ways of relaxing and unwinding during this pandemic.
All right, we're going to circle back to solving crimes. I want your recommendations about that. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about leadership and leading really large scale initiatives. You've worked on projects that affect close to 200,000 people. What are the most important things to keep in mind when you're working at that scale?
Yes, and what has been very interesting with the experience there is when it is at such a large scale, it was also global in nature. Anytime I've led a large change initiative, it's all about the people. It's understanding that change is very different, right, for everyone. And making sure that we understand the audiences, that we understand the culture, and that we understand the impact of the change. We cannot assume anything. So what I've learned is being very clear on the why and be very proactive in communicating the why, have a very solid plan and strategy. And one of the things that worked very well for us was communicating that, over communicating that, creating change networks, change champions. So you create this community of change to really support and guide people through that change. And then we build in transition periods. I think often with change, you think, oh, we've rolled it out, off you go, good luck. And it's not working. We need to allow time for adoption. We need to allow time for the change to really set in, and we need them to recoup so that they're ready for whatever comes next. And that's kind of how we approach that. And when you look at cultures, when you look at it being global, making sure that you have the right subject matter experts available to you to really guide you on what you cannot and cannot do in certain countries. So one size doesn't fit all when it's of a global and large scale nature.
Can we talk a little bit about that time that you mentioned building in for change?
Yes.
How, in your experience, how has your perception of the amount of time that it takes to navigate large scale change evolved? Are you surprised at how long change takes? Or
yes, and how I like to compare it sometimes to people is, you know, when you have a child and you want them to eat their Brussels sprouts and they don't like it, you want them to eat it again and again and again until they kind of either say, okay, I will never like it, or they kind of are getting used to it. And I think with change, we want to make sure that we repeat, and not necessarily exactly the same way, but different ways of reinforcing. And I think that helped by reinforcing it and building it that time for people to absorb it. But you also have to look at the complexity. Some of the change doesn't allow as much time for adoption or as much time for them to bounce back, right? And ready for the next change. So really assessing it and understanding the impact will make sure that you're better equipped and prepared to really plan for that time.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions, but I'm going to take us back to the one that is next on our. If you could travel back in time, another time horizon question, what advice would you have given yourself, say 10 years ago, that would have made your career easier as you were looking at managing projects at that scale?
Yes, there are a couple of things. There's three things that I know you only asked me for one, but there's three things, but I'll be very quick. I think the most important thing is don't get complacent when it comes to your career. And this is what I mean by that. Diversify yourself, expand your network outside the industry that you're in. And what I mean by that is industries are changing. For me, this was a perfect example of kind of looking at the impact to the hospitality industry, and it kind of forced me to go out a little bit more and expand my network. And I wish I invested in that early on. And with that comes that you should never stop learning, right? Take courses, grow, observe people, challenge yourself to learn a new skill, and because it's never good to be complacent, period. And with that comes, getting a mentor. I think it's important that you reach out to different people. And one of the things that I've learned, especially during COVID, people are willing to spend time with you. People are willing to talk to you. And it doesn't have to be the same mentor. Everyone can be a mentor to you if there's something that they have that you want to learn from. And then the other piece is and this is what one of my mentors taught me: under promise and over deliver. There's so many unknowns when you take on new projects, and you need to be cautious with what you promise and what you deliver. So that one is always top of mind. And then as we're doing all of this, if you do not look after your personal, mental and physical well-being, it doesn't matter, right? What else you do. So all of that combined, I think, is the advice that I would have given to myself 10 years ago, and probably a skinnier version of myself 10 years ago. If I can follow that advice, life would be different a little bit.
That's funny. You mentioned before we got on the call about the rapid growth at RadNet.
Yeah.
You said that you do something more than 7 million outpatient visits annually. There are more than 8,000 employees there.
Yeah.
That, especially during COVID, what do you recommend, or how do you think that people should attend to that well-being? Do you see in the culture at RadNet or at Marriott, where your other experience was, that attendance to employees' well-being?
Yes, and actually one of the reasons that I was very attracted to RadNet was their how they are taking care of their how they take care of their employees. And I think this was very clear during COVID. They had to transition all their call center agents to work from home in less than a week. They made sure that we have the right structure in place for them to start working from home. And it was definitely a learning experience. But one of the first things my boss said to me when we came here is really take a closer look in how we transitioned and how we really supporting them throughout this change. And what is it that we need to do to make sure that we're there for them, for their well-being. And one of the things we learned, and I had several focus groups when I joined, is the balance of being a parent, having kids at home, doing at home schooling, right? And probably helping them with topics that they don't even know, right? I certainly wouldn't be able to do it. And then you have to be on the job and taking care of patients as well. So we've been working with those team members, and we've been working on their schedules, and we've been looking at how can we support them during that. And if some of them wanted to have furlough or leave, we worked with them on that. So we really customized that approach, and we really ramped up how we are interacting with them. We built a stronger support model here so that we're available for them. We are now transitioning to more personal outreach, and we want to make sure that everyone has a camera so we can see them face to face. Those are the little things that we rolled out to make sure that that human element is still there during all of this.
That is awesome. I want to talk more about call centers. You've spent 30 years working on them. In what ways have you worked to focus on the customer there, and how does that call center operation span across technology, communications, maybe sales and marketing?
Yes, and I'll kind of touch both. I've learned a tremendous amount working for Marriott and the call center, and I have, especially over the last years, the leadership there and how they transformed the call center organization has been phenomenal. And actually, she's still one of my mentors in really guiding me through the journey that I'm on right now. But how at Marriott we've been able to embrace the technology and making sure that the way we are handling, how we're routing the calls, the way that the structure is set up at the call centers, the way we are training our agents to become not only great salespeople, but how they deliver the right experience for our customers has always been exceptional. And those are the things that I'm taking with me in this world. And we're really looking at how are we taking care of our customers and how can we create these frictionless experiences for our patients. Now, the demographic of our patients in healthcare are slightly different than they are in hospitality, and their knowledge with when it comes to using technology and usage of using technology is very different than the demographics in hospitality. So as we're looking at what we would call our deflection strategy and how can we create more self-service options for our customers, will be slightly different. And you have to really understand your customer intimately so you can develop the right strategy and technology, right? And incorporate it into what you want your world-class call center organization to look like.
Okay. I'm going to keep all of that in mind the next time I need any radiation surgery.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit more. You've hit this point a bunch of times, but about employee engagement, about crafting great experiences. When you're working with large teams and thinking about the positive moments in an employee's journey, the recognition or engagement, but also some of the more difficult moments, furloughs or the impact of the economy. Talk to me about how you craft those great experiences with purpose.
Yes, and I have a tremendous passion for this, and kind of here's why. I do believe that if someone wakes up and they have to go to work and they have to leave behind their families, right, their homes, it has to be a positive experience and a happy feeling for them, right? I want them to be happy when they come to work because, and I believe the philosophy of taking care of your people just applies to any industry and anyone who interacts and is responsible for people. So things that I've looked at throughout my career is what are the things that matter to them? They want to feel valued, they want to feel appreciated, and they want to be recognized. And as I look at recognition and engagement in total, there is kind of this, and I look at it in pieces of the pie. There's this one piece of the pie that is often tied to incentive programs and monetary value with bonus programs that drives engagement, that drives performance. The other piece of the pie is a little bit more symbolic. So they want trophies, they want certificates, and again, a way for them to get recognized for their accomplishments. And then the other pieces, and that's kind of the softer touch and the emotional connection. They want this human interaction with their managers. And we all know people leave their leaders, they don't leave companies, they leave their leaders. So that relationship is critical. But that emotional connection, the frequent conversation with the managers, the acknowledgement of what they're doing and that they're doing well. But that also comes with holding people accountable, right? I mean, we have to be very clear. We have to be very transparent. We have to set expectations with our people and saying, this is what's expected of you. And this is what you need to do to achieve success, or this is what you need to do to take care of our customers. And then it goes back into that cycle again, right? Of recognizing them based on what's expected of them. So, and it should be fun, and it is about making people feel good about what they've accomplished, because if it gets noticed, the chances of you doing it again are pretty good, right? That like, well, they've noticed it, I'm going to do it again, because I feel good when I get recognized for what I do.
I hear you. I feel extremely lucky to get to host conversations like this as part of my job. Can you imagine the world?
It's great. You've got a fab job. Yes.
I'll tell you what. Thank you, Celerity. So I want to shift our view a little bit towards the future. Yes. You spent so much time in hospitality and healthcare with this broad perspective. What do you see in terms of creative solutions for business transformation and the future of our businesses coming back, especially with news about kind of like a brighter, oh man, it's just been an interesting week, a good week, I think, for all of us.
Yes. And I think what was very clear to me just over the last, 6 to 8 months is that challenging times fuels innovation. And the reason why I say that is we are forced to think differently and creatively and adjust the course that we were on. And I think that COVID had just such a tremendous impact, right, to our industries, right? And not only travel, healthcare, we all felt it. And I think that businesses are looking at things differently. And I'm sure you see it and hear it too, is people are approaching things in a completely different manner. I love, and I'm so proud I've worked for Marriott, right? Because I think they always do such an incredible job rethinking travel. And they just rolled out the day pass to customers, right? Allowing them to work from the comfort and safety of their hotel room if they want to get away from their home. So that to me is innovative and different. What we did in healthcare is we created these virtual waiting rooms for our patients. So when they arrive to our imaging centers, we would call them or text them to let them know when they're ready for the procedures, so they could sit in their safety and comfort of their car before walking into a public kind of space. So a lot of industries are approaching and rethinking the way they're doing it. So even though this is a painful time, I think we might see some moments of brilliance across all industries that will change and transform the way we live and do things. So this is not a great time, but good things I think will come out of it. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, likewise. Also, I want to just pause for a moment to acknowledge too that it is Veterans Day, and you said something that really, I think, challenging times fuel innovation, and just there is so much innovation and also deep gratitude for the work of our veterans and servants, public servants here.
Yes, absolutely great.
Yeah. So looking again towards that future, towards a brighter future, towards innovation that comes from this, what do you hope to see? What would the world look like at its best?
I think we are all missing things, right? And I think sometimes it's good to miss things so you value what you've had. And I think as I'm looking at the future, when we all want some normality back, I definitely think people will appreciate the little things, right? Whether it's travel, right? And I'm a believer that travel is good for the soul. It energizes you when you explore the world around you, right? And when you discover new experiences, it all makes us more interesting human beings. And I think the normal things of being out there, and little things, being able to go to your kids' games and not watching them from a distance with a mask on. I think not being confined in your homes, being able to go out there. I would love for us to be able to go back to the normality of it all. And I'm certainly hopeful that will happen. And all the new things that came out of this, hopefully, it will make, the world a better place, right? For us to be in, and more appreciative for us what the world is like without the pandemic and the restrictions that we're dealing with right now.
For sure. I'm looking forward to next Halloween, Sjaloom, whenever you and I can go as the pictures behind you. That's our secret plan. Before we wrap up, what recommendations do you have? Books, movies, podcasts? What has changed the way that you look at the world, and what do you think that our audience might enjoy?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I'm currently reading the Effortless Experience by Matthew Dixon, Nick Toman, and Rick DeLisi. It was recommended to me by an old colleague, and it's focused on customer loyalty. What is great about this book, it shares great research, but also practical ideas on how we can create an effortless and seamless customer experience at every touch point. So that, for me, with the work that I'm doing, it's just been a real interesting read. I also have been listening, and I kind of mentioned it to you, to different podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there that really touch on issues that are very current right now. And my drive every day is just a great opportunity to listen to that. But I also listen to a podcast called Smartlist with Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes and Will Arnett, and that's funny and entertaining. So I like to balance it out, focusing on what helps me grow professionally, what helps me grow just mentally and for my well-being, and also anything that has something to do with celebrities, to unwind and relax. I balance that out for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Attending not just to the experience of the employees that you work with, but also your own self. Sjaloom, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to get to talk with you, really an honor. And also, I think that it's amazing to know that people like you have a hand in shaping the employee experience and, in turn, the customer experience at organizations like Marriott and RadNet. Really appreciate you sharing your insight with us.
Oh, thank you, Anne. It's been such a pleasure, and a big thank you to my friends at Celerity. I think partnerships like that are so important, and honestly, I could not have done some of the things just without the great interactions that I've had with the team. So thank you as well, Anne. Really appreciate it.
Stay well.
Thank you.